Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Moody Talk. This is week 2 of our December talk, and we are talking about guilt this month. I chose guilt because I think a lot of people feel guilty during the holidays. Maybe they are not speaking with a family member or a loved one, or they're not in contact with their family and they feel guilty about that. Or maybe you can't give your kids something that they really wanted for this holiday season, and you're feeling guilty about that as well. And so there's so many different reasons. If you're in a depression, many times people in depression, they don't move as quickly. They have more foggy brain. It's not really easy for them to keep up with their loved ones and family members because they're so depressed and not able to really bring up their excitement level for the holidays. So there's a lot of guilt that surrounds that as well. Now, usually in week 2, I end up going straight into coping skills for the emotion that we're talking about. But I was really thinking about it, and I really think we need to discuss what types of guilt we all feel as human beings in different situations and different circumstances. So I thought I'd go through a couple of them and give you some of my own feelings on them and some of the things that I've gone through, maybe as a parent, as a sibling, or as a partner. And talk a bit more about those, maybe give you an understanding so you can understand, if you're feeling the same way, that there are ways that we can work through it. And so I wanted to give those examples. So maybe if you're out there and you're feeling like you feel this way, you're not alone, not at all. I mean, many times for me during the holiday season, I get depressed, and maybe I don't move as fast. I don't do things as much as I would if I weren't in a depression. And that affects me as a parent, and it affects me as a friend. And so let's just jump into it. I'll start with parental guilt. So when I grew up, I was in a very abusive childhood situation, and I didn't learn very much how to raise a child in a atmosphere that does not have the abuse that I had. And so I sometimes feel guilty that I am not able to respond to my kids in the way that it would be healthier. And it's one of the reasons why I created Moody, because I really think that we all need to learn what our emotions are and that they're valid and that we can feel them. But it's just the way that you go about handling them that's really the issue. So I'll go back to my parental guilt. So yeah, growing up, I didn't get the love and attention that I really needed, and I think children need in general. And so with that, I think I went into being a parent not able to cope with a lot of the things that kiddos do. And immediately reacting, because that's what my PTSD brain does. It reacts in a way that may not be as healthy as, if I didn't go through that childhood. And regardless if you went through something, if you had a trauma in your life, we all have our own ways of dealing with our emotions. And so with Moody, why I created Moody is because I want us to all understand that it's healthy. And here comes my kitten. She's going to be, bouncing in and out, I'm sure. So anyway, when my kids were babies, I sometimes couldn't deal with the constant things that babies and children do. I wasn't able to cope as well when they were being aggressive, especially aggressive, because automatically my PTSD would click in and I'd just want to hide. Or I'd do the fight or flight. And so that is something that's always been a guilt for me, that I felt like I never gave my children the appropriate responses to their own emotions. I also, when you're a parent and you have a spouse or a partner, sometimes you feel that marital or partner guilt, that maybe you're not spending enough time with them, or you're working too hard, not able to come home and take care of the kids with your partner. That's another big guilt that I think a lot of people feel in situations where, children become a part of your lives. So I think with parental guilt, I feel like a lot of it can feel justified that you feel guilty, but we don't really understand the difference between what's justified, what's not justified. If you take my case of not really knowing exactly how to react to my children's emotions and their needs, um, I could say it's very justifiable, but it's also not justifiable in the sense that I was never taught how to healthily uh, deal with my kids' emotions and their outbursts or whatever it may be. So I think there's also other ways that you can feel parental guilt, not spending enough time with your children along with your spouse, not being able to go to certain functions for your kids because you can't for some reason, not being able to afford the things that kids want, which is a very, very big guilt I think a lot of parents run into. And where's the justify and the non-justify in it? It's not really justified because it's out of your control. Maybe you're working a job or two jobs that don't quite handle the amount that your children may want for their holiday presents or their birthdays, that kind of thing. So, yeah, parental guilt. It's I think it's just so common. Also, I have PTSD and major depressive disorder, and my oldest son, he also has major depressive disorder. And one day we were talking about all the different things that they got from us. Like my sons got my ex-husband's teeth, they're straight. I had to go through all the braces and all that kind of stuff. So laughing about it, oh, you got your dad's teeth, so you didn't need to do that. There's even like hair, about hair. Well, mine is thick, but you got that curliness from your dad. Those kind of things. And I was chatting about it with my oldest son, and he said, well, why did I get your depression? And that really, really hit me really hard because it's something that I always felt guilty about. I always felt as though I gave him depression. And that's not a justifiable guilt. I didn't go out of my way to, add a chemical difference to my child that would cause depression. But I burst out into tears because it's really hard to hear something like that, and he felt badly afterwards, which he shouldn't have anyway because he was asking a simple question. And there's just no way of getting out of that feeling of guilt when it comes to it. So when he said it, damn, it really, really hit hard. It's something that stays with me, but it's not justified. So what I need to remember is to go to my coping skills in the moment and to use those coping skills to bring my emotions back down and be able to talk with him about what it means that I have depression and he has the same depression. So parental guilt, it's a doozy. And, then there are also the other ones, like I had talked about spousal or partner guilt, not being able to be there for them. Maybe you have a job or two jobs that keep you away and you're not able to help out at home, or you're not giving them the time that they want and you feel they need. So I think that's another really big guilt that a lot of people hold in those situations. Let's see, what other guilts are out there? There's survivor guilt, that kind of guilt can really stay. Again, is it justified? Probably not, but it's there. Maybe you lived through an illness that a lot of other people don't live through. Maybe you beat it, and that's phenomenal. But in the back of your mind, you're thinking, well, why did I survive? But they didn't. And I think a lot of people carry that load as well, maybe in a fire where you got out and others didn't, or you were in a major accident and it you got out and others didn't. So I think we all have those kind of guilts that sit deep, deep, deep inside us, that regardless if they're justified or not, they still sit and they feel heavy inside our hearts. So there are so many other kinds of guilt that we can say we can justify or not justify, but really it's the part of you that needs to learn to cope with those feelings, sit with them, recognize them, maybe have, if they're justifiable, have a moment where you have to forgive yourself for something that happened that is, it's done. It's over and done with. Or if it's unjustified, just reminding yourself, giving yourself like an analysis of, well, why should I feel that way? Is this the correct way to feel? I'm not saying it's a right or wrong. It's more of, is it the emotion I should be feeling at this time? And I think that's a really, really important part of dealing with guilt, with all types of guilt, sibling guilt, just partner guilt, like I said before, but it's something that needs to be recognized and understood and then coped with in a way that makes you feel better in the moment. Maybe you don't lose that guilt. Maybe it still comes back to you on a regular basis, but learning to cope and find a way to bring yourself back from that deep, dark cave that you might be walking into. I think that's something that's the most important part of this particular emotion. Now, next week, I'm going to go through chain analysis. It's a DBT skill that I use a lot because I want to understand a situation and make sure that I'm feeling the emotion that's appropriate for it. So I'll talk about chain analysis. We'll talk about fitting the facts again. We talked about that in October with fear. So I hope that you guys will stop in again next week and watch, so I can talk a little bit more about chain analysis and how we can walk through a situation and how we can, in the end, cope with the emotion that we feel from it. So have a great week, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.